Hello, Sumo fans.
We're back.
We're back, and man, this has been the tournament of the year, which is not, there's one less this year, but November has a lot to live up to now.
We got exactly what we had hoped we would get. We talked about all the young guys, we talked about the aging veterans, we talked about Teruno Fuji, and minus, and this is an iffy thing to say, but minus the Yokozuna, it was a perfect tournament. But if the Yokozuna were there, it might not have been a perfect tournament. So I think we got everything we could possibly get to root for and enjoy.
It was really good. We can start out our conversation with the Yokozuna 1 East and West. Both Hakuho and Kakuryu I will mention together because they had the same record of 0, 0, and 15, both out with injuries. As we had mentioned, this time last year, maybe a little earlier, when the Yokozuna injury parade was really getting started, this goes back to like Kiseno Sato, we were concerned because there was nobody coming up. And whenever there were these 1 Yokozuna or 0 Yokozuna tournaments, the sumo was noticeably less good until September 2020.
Now it has been changed. This is what everybody was hoping for, that there would be some people to take over, the changing of the guard. It's bittersweet.
Bittersweet indeed. It's hard to say goodbye to anybody with that big white belt. It feels like if it were to happen, that I wouldn't be like crying in the night.
Agreed. Let's say last year, I definitely would have been crying in the night. This year, starting in January, when Shodai started to show some promise and Asanoyama and all that, I was like, okay, maybe we're getting somewhere, Now I think, the time is working the way it should work.
Yeah. So for the 2 Yokozuna, I believe they got their hands slapped by the Deliberation Council, as they do. Hakuho is effectively untouchable, being the greatest of all time. I think Kakuryu may get the hammer dropped on him if he does not perform in November.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like he's got to put up or shut up in November, and if he doesn't, he'll likely be asked to retire. So, on one hand, it's a little surprising to me because it's been going on for so long. On the other hand, it's like, well, eventually this day was going to come because they did that to Kiseno Sato.
Yeah.
They gave him a lot of chances, and finally they said, we don't want this anymore. They're finally coming for Kakuryu. They will not do it to Hakuho. They could, but I really don't think they will. He has given them a time that he wants to end, and he's the greatest of all time, so what are you going to do?
You can't tell him what to do.
No.
And in 20 years, he'll be telling everybody else what to do, most likely.
Yep.
Hopefully we'll be around to see that. I'm personally looking forward to Hakuho the Diva Judge.
Oh, man. He's going to make everybody pay. Everybody. And he's going to wink at you or give you a little strut or whatever he feels like doing.
One day we will get this reality. For now, we have plenty of sumo. So for the people who are attending, we will start with Ozeki 1 East, Asamiyama, the potentially unwilling recipient of the hopes and dreams of the entire country. 10-5, which is a pretty good record on paper, but it really felt like everybody wanted him to get 15-0 and just throw everybody flawlessly. And as soon as he didn't do that, everybody just started putting the pressure on him.
Which made everything worse. He started 0-3, which, everybody was saying it's his nerves, it's a mental thing, he's not hurt. And then he comes back and he gets himself in the title race until right at the very end, and then some of those losses, it's like, ooh. Yeah, welcome to the Japan pressure game. Like you said, all the hopes and dreams are on you, buddy.
It was beforehand, he always had something. When he was building the Ozeki run, there was still other Ozeki, and there was still the other Yokozuna. And then last tournament, when he was brand new Ozeki, he had all of that energy, all of that power, and now it's the day 2, you get up and it's the same thing as day 1, but with all of that energy gone. I I think he still got it, but this is what happens when the impossible mental pressure of being one of the best sumo wrestlers in the world comes down on you real fast.
Yeah, and honestly, being Ozeki is probably the hardest position because once you hit Yokozuna, sure, your career's over if you can't perform, but your career's over if you can't perform. When you're in no man's land, Ozeki land, you're shooting for Yokozuna, but you have all these penalties in place to lose your rank and everything else and all this pressure. And if you go down, like a Yokozuna can never go down. He just ends his career. What do you do if you're a Takayasu or, one of these new guys and you lose your Ozeki rank? It's a crushing position to be in. And I think Asanoyama has it in him. Maybe he just needs to have these downs so that people aren't looking at him so much. Let them write him off. Good, write me off. Write him off so he can just do his brand of sumo.
Speaking of getting written off and then just being able to do what you want.
Yeah!
Ozeki won West, Takakeisho 12-3 made him runner-up, and this was a quiet statement.
Mm-hmm. First, the changing of the Mawashi, that black Mawashi. That was like, I'm here for some serious business.
Yeah, and he did really well. This was the tournament that convinced me that he fades a little bit. Mm-hmm. He had the injury issues, and either just because his momentum just dies near the final few days, or just something happens and he's just too injury prone to make it the whole 2 weeks. But near the end, he was faltering a little bit, and that real strong sumo that was doing him well turned into good sumo, which, to be fair, was good enough from the last day to topple over the mentally broken Asanoyama. But it's interesting because this is same Ozeki rank, same sort of young up-and-comers, but totally, completely different storylines, how they have different pressures, different obstacles to overcome, and now that they're sort of both proven Ozekis, now comes the how do you get to that next step?
Yeah, what are you going to do different to become Yokozuna? Or are you going to be the next Takayasu or Goeido? There's a reason why they never made it to the next level. Each one of them has something that the other one needs. If you could fuse Asanoyama and Takakeisho, you would have a Yokozuna. Maybe not the likes of Hakuho. Won't see a guy like him for a long time. But you would have a very good Yokozuna that you could rely on to win tournaments. Takakeisho's got two major issues that I can see. I think the endurance, first of all, he's injury prone, and we talked about this. It's the weight, and probably he's got a cardio thing going. If you watch Hakuho train, cardio is a big part of what he does. Now, the extra weight that Takakeisho put on probably made him even harder to fight, honestly. But in the long run, he doesn't have the endurance to go 15 days. I think if he just did a couple of tweaks, he might be more effective. That's up to him and his coach and his trainers, but at least I know he's got it in him. And then the injuries, that's always a wild card. But he had the weird thing where he tried to get up off the dohyo.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that was. Somebody in the comments section of one of the videos said that there's a thing called a stinger, where if you do get hit in a certain spot, that could happen to you. But it looked like it could be anything from a separated shoulder to having like a mini seizure. I don't know what that was, but that's another factor that always scares me.
Yeah, every time Takakeisho goes down, does anything weird, you're like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah, holding my breath. Right before that match, I actually had a vision of him falling and like getting really hurt. I kid you not. But I thought it was a knee. And then that happens, I'm like, oh, it's coming true. Oh. So we'll see, but it was really nice to see him be the guy he was before the injury parade started, and maybe he can right the ship.
We'll see. We'll see. A promising showing for him. And we're going to go to Sekiwaki 1 East. Congratulations to Shodai.
Oh, Shodai.
I didn't think I'd say that sentence. I'm so glad I am. Shodai finally found the off switch and ripped it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yusho winner, and he got 2 special prizes.
That's $40,000.
So it's not official at time of recording, but it sounds all but guaranteed that he's going to be Ozeki as well.
What a great tournament, huh?
Oh, man.
When he was, sort of licking his wounds after January and July, he must have gone to such a low place, and it's like, well, here's the high. You get over your low, and you can have this. You can win every prize there is to win, and get a promotion to Ozeki. So, hey, this is a bright spot.
It's gonna be real interesting to see him now that he's He was always a contender. For a while, he was up and down. It was like, what Shodai is going to show up today? Then he sort of stuck in Sanyaku for a little while, and I was like cautious to trust.
It's always hard to trust.
But then he's proven it.
He has a lot of experience fighting the tougher guys, Yokozunas and Ozekis, in the training practices. I'd love to be a fly on the wall and see how these things are conducted, but he's always had something, because for them to call you out and say, this is the guy I want to train with today, they see something in you that they want to, improve their sumo. There's something there. And he's been that guy a long time, and I think he just needed to put it all together. Probably did some changes in his training because he's way stronger than he was. Yeah. And he has a very interesting tachiai. He just stands there and takes the hit, and then he lets you beat the crap out of him, and then he destroys you. Mm-hmm. So he's unorthodox in addition to everything else. He's carved out his own place in sumo right now.
Yeah, I had pegged Asanoyama to beat him on day 14.
Shocking.
And when he just took him and just like Kane style choke slams him almost. I saw that, I'm like, oh my god, he's gonna win.
Yeah.
And to do not just to do that in general, but to Asanoyama, who had gotten his momentum back.
Yeah, he was in a good spot at that time. He crushed poor Asanoyama.
Oh man.
His spirit was crushed with that.
I don't think mentally he recovered from that, but
he deserves to be Ozeki.
He does. It is not official, and there could be some precedent for them to say, let's see it again, but the way that things are, it makes a lot more sense to make him Ozeki, particularly since the precedent is that Ozekis sometimes have a rocky start anyway.
Right. Might as well just do it now, see what happens. I mean, he's shown himself, he's proven himself, he's hit the mark. When Taki Keisho was not given the opportunity to go up the first time, they made him go an extra tournament. It's because there were some iffy things that they saw. Mm-hmm. I didn't see anything iffy about Shodai. No. I don't have a question in my mind that he can't do what he did, again, because he's done it 2 other tournaments, and he improved each tournament. He did even better than the last, so take a bet on him. I don't think you'll lose on that bet.
Yeah, it'll be just good to have 3 Ozekis again.
Yeah, we went from 4 Ozeki. That only lasted 1 tournament, I think, before they started dropping like flies. Then you only had Taki Keisho, who was completely untested. And then you had Asanoyama come up. Let's fill it back up.
Fill it back up.
Because we don't know when we'll have a Yokozuna again. I have no idea when that will happen again.
So, next up, Sakiwaki 1 West, Mitakeumi. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
That's right.
On paper, he had the strongest case for winning. But this is what happens when you make a bet on Mitakeumi.
3rd time, somebody's going to surpass him.
It is. That's got to sting. There's got to be something that he's just staring at the ceiling. He goes to bed. He's just like, it's the 3rd son of a gun.
Yeah, I really don't know what to say. You are who you are. Mm-hmm. So he's got to find something deep inside of himself to push through all of this disappointment. He can go to bed at night knowing he's won 2 Yusho. But is that enough for him? Getting Ozeki is harder than winning a Yusho. We know this. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what to say about him. He surprises me because we know he's got it in him. And maybe at the end he's got the same thing as Takakesho. He runs out of gas. But I think it's more likely he runs out of focus.
There's a certain amount of pressure he needs. If he doesn't have any, he'll be a little inconsistent. If he has too much, he starts losing critical matches. But both the times he won the U shows, it was this chaos.
Like, no, there were no Yokozunas in either one. It was sort of up for grabs. Nobody was expecting it to be him. And then all of a sudden he goes and he does it.
Also, he didn't have a run building.
Yeah.
Both the times he won a tournament, it was sort of Ozeki reset, which he's 8-7 right now. So
he'll probably do it again.
So come November, he may actually be his hungriest because he's at the point where he has nothing to lose.
Right. It's very possible.
It is quite interesting. It's one of those things that it's either he's going to be like this his entire career, sort of just hit by this glass ceiling, or one day he's just going to step onto the dohyo and he's just going to be a demon and just start thrashing everybody.
It's going to be when he's like 34 years old. He's suddenly going to be like, I've been doing this a long time. You're all done. And then he'll become Ozeki and like retire 2 years later or something.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just shrug my shoulders. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure he's asking himself. So if he doesn't know, I don't know.
God, goodness.
At least he was Kachikoshi. I mean.
Yeah, 8-7. He keeps his rank. He'll probably be East by seniority. And again, it's when you stop paying attention to him that he builds again. So maybe he just needs to regroup and see if he can keep that momentum.
Maybe just forget about becoming Ozeki. Just think about winning the tournament. And just throw that out the window because you've lost it 3 times. Just pretend like you have no shot at it, and maybe then you'll get it.
That's interesting.
Yeah?
What's he got to lose at this point?
He's got nothing left to lose. You know.
Next up, the sad tradition of whenever they make a second Kamasubi or Sekiwake slot, whoever gets that dies horribly.
And they don't. There's not another spot for a while after that.
No, Daisho 5-10 means he's probably not even going to be down to Kamasubi. He'll be rank and file, which is, I'm not concerned.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that this could have been his moment, but now it's clearly not. Shodai's moment now. He'll be back. This is by no means him going away. It's just him losing his shine a little bit. Has to regroup.
Yeah, he had, like he always does, he has some tough matches. I mean, his style of sumo, he's doing all the slaps and stuff, and I don't know if it, just fires his opponent up. He has some of the toughest matches because of how he fights. The other guy ends up coming at him real hard. He loses a lot of close ones. It's almost almost there, and then, it all falls apart. He will do it. It's kind of like Shodai. Shodai had that sort of thing. He'll probably regroup, and he'll try again, and we don't know when he's going to show it, but nothing is lost. Nothing is lost on Daisho. Somebody did mention in NHK that he had an injury. They don't really talk about injuries, so there's a possibility that he lost a little bit of the fire because of that injury. I believe it was an ankle. So I hadn't known Daisho to have an injury before this tournament, so if this is a fresh injury and it just takes a little bit off of you, we talked about all the guys who were competing for the spot.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a blip. We come back in November and he gets himself right back in Sanyaku and continues on.
I'm honestly expecting that. We'll see. It's sort of... Well, he was my dark horse pick, so this has a personal sting for me, but I have to tell myself, in the long run, Daisho will be fine. He'll be, if he becomes Ozeki before Mitakeumi,
oh, no.
I'm going to have to send Mitakeumi a flower arrangement or something. It's sorry for your loss.
I'm going to send some cards, man. I have my kids draw some pictures for you. I mean...
I'm looking out for you, Mitakeumi. All right, next up, we had Kamasubi Okinomi, who he had it last tournament. Well, not so this one. This was going to be tough for anybody who wasn't in that tournament race.
Yeah, he's sort of odd man out. And when I looked at it beforehand, you had all these guys fighting, but there's the younger guys, there's the guys in the middle. This was one of those things where they were going to come at him hard. People want his spot. You know, maybe he could do it at some point. Maybe he can't. But he was at a tough spot, and I'm not shocked. I don't necessarily worry about him. I think at the very least he'll be hanging around for a while and fighting some good fights. But this was just going to be the tournament to beat somebody up, and it was going to be in the Mitakayumi, Daisho, Okinomi spots.
Yep. Okinomi is still fun to watch. Maybe he'll regroup. Maybe he'll do a sort of a slow sink, Tamawashi style.
Yeah.
And sort of dip his toe in the Sanyaku Lake and then have to fall back down again before he can regroup. As far as I can tell, not injured though, so that's good at least.
Yeah. He's solid. He's stable.
He'll be back.
He'll be back.
Kamasubi won West with Endo, who was 3-9-3. Endo, who beats Asanoyama at his own game one day and then falls on his face the next day, is just Endo being Endo.
And yeah, I don't know if it's worse to be Mitakayumi or Endo. I really don't know. I think Mitakayumi probably cares more than Endo, but who knows? Endo does not show any emotion as far as, you know, he's not going to show you how he feels. His expression is the same if he wins and then if he loses. But he has some of the best matches, some of the best flashy moves, cool sumo. You're like, wow, look at how he pulled that off. And then next day, slipping on the dirt. Nah. I wonder, does he have aspirations to be in Sanyaku? You would assume so. But I can't figure him out for anything.
So of note is when he hit Makakoshi, the losing record, he withdrew the next day.
So he could have been injured prior to.
He could have been fighting through something and just, once he knew he was going to lose his rank, just gave up the ghost. Or maybe he just got hurt on that day.
Right.
So, but I'm willing to cut him at least a little bit of slack if he was trying to fight through something.
Right. If you're injured, you're injured.
Yep.
That explains everything. But it's a shame. I would love to see him I'd love to see him in an alternate universe with all of his bag of tricks be the next Hakuho. If he had, the thing about Hakuho is he's so strong and he has a great ring sense in addition to the bag of tricks. Endo has some things that he could be a Hakuho, but he doesn't have all those intangibles. And I would love in an alternate universe to see him rise and stay there and give us awesome sumo. You get the biggest bag of tricks from him. And I wish. We'll see.
Rough times. Wishing him good health, if nothing else. Mm-hmm. And really, if this is the Endo that we will see until he retires, it's still a fun time.
Yeah.
It will be a yearning for what could have been, but just seeing him play the foil and the cold sweat that must go down some people's backs when you're like, what Endo are you getting today?
Yeah, right.
Are you getting alternate universe Yokozuna, or are you going to get the guy who you just need to tap on the shoulder?
And then he's flailing.
You never know. Prior tournament winner, Terunofuji, who is Megashira 1 East, was 8-5-2. He was in the tournament race for a little while, and when he hit 4 losses, he withdrew on day 13 with injury. He had real good form, and when I was watching him react when he lost, you can tell there was that hunger. It was still there. I think it was a little too much for him.
Yeah, this was going to be a competitive tournament, and he is the previous winner, so everybody's going to come at him a little bit harder. And his knee is untested, really, in the upper division. You know, he did what he did last tournament, but now here's a tournament later, a shortened tournament. Like, you know, did the original injury act up, or was just simply, okay, you know, I didn't make it through, let's just be cautious with the knee. But the fire was there, the desire to win was there. If he's not seriously injured, he's gonna make Sanyaku next tournament.
Yep.
So if he's not seriously injured, we're gonna see an interesting situation with him trying to get back to his Ozeki rank.
If nothing else, this proved that he deserves to be in this upper echelon.
Yes.
Because he got those 8 wins, and I think if that was a 9-3, that he probably would have gone the rest of the tournament. Maybe the knees were just giving up, and he just would have lost it either way. But he is continuing to prove he's a man to watch.
Yeah, he's not a fluke. He's not somebody who just had a good tournament. He's got the skills, and had he never been injured, he probably would have been a Yokozuna.
Maybe he still will.
You never know. We need one.
Hey, calling all wrestlers.
Help wanted.
Help wanted. Experience actually is necessary, but you still can apply within. Next up, this is the first tournament that both Megashira 1s did really well.
Yes.
Takanosho. Not out of nowhere, but you last tournament, I think he was like 8 or 9 wins. He scraped by, and we're looking at him, and we're like, this is probably what he's going to be for a little while. He was slugging with the best of them.
And even the matches he lost, I felt there was an exception, but I think when he fought Tobizaru, he didn't look too good in that match.
No.
But beside that match, he looked pretty good even in his losses. And here's an interesting thing. First of all, he is going to go to Sanyaku also next tournament. But here's an interesting thing about sumo. Even though it's like one of the few individual sports in the country because such a collective society, you can do this as a team. Takanosho is in Takekeisho's stable. And we saw this with Terutsuyoshi and Terunofuji. If he gets matched up against guys in the title race, and had he beaten Tobizaru, we have a totally different thing at the end. This is where you can actually work together to boost somebody into, the Yusho winner. Sort of fascinating. He was not able to do it.
No.
But it was a cool scenario to think about, you're helping out your buddy, even in an individualistic sport. So, let's look forward to Takanosho teaming up in future tournaments.
Team Taka.
Taka might have... I'm telling you, if Takanosho gets even better and he start beating those people and just plowing away so Takekeisho can keep going, might get another Yusho. So
maybe Takanosho takes the Yusho for himself.
Oh, and then the plot thickens.
The betrayal at the top. Well,
I thought we were working together. The nice thing is, though, they'll never face each other in a tournament unless there's a playoff. So even if Takanosho's the one poised to do it, I would assume Takekeisho wouldn't have any direct animosity.
Probably not. I don't know.
That'd be on him if he did.
Yeah, it'd be on him. At this point, he has to know the game.
Yeah.
Next up, we have my boy Hokutofuji, who does what he normally does, which is to fight and die gloriously. 6-9, he was able to regroup near the end, which was good, but losing record, and just unfortunately either the people at the top know his game or he just needs to dial it in just a little bit more. Yeah,
a lot of it's his footwork. He's going so fast and furious that he's almost flying off the dohyo all the time. If he just had more of a stable stance or something, maybe harder to push him. He's a pretty big guy, but like you said, he's fast and furious. His forehead was all banged up at one time. He is always... you don't miss the fire with him.
No.
He is always, gonna come at you. And unless you're super calm and are reading his moves at a lightning quick pace, you're gonna lose. His record could be 6-9 in this tournament, and next tournament, it's 9-6.
It probably will be, actually, because he'll be down low enough...
that he can take care of...
business. Mm-hmm. Which is fine. He leaves it all out. Yeah,
you can't feel disappointment besides the record. He puts everything into his sumo, and he's a character. I enjoy it.
He's fun. Next up, we have Tamawashi, Megashira 2 West. He was 5-10. Tamawashi's starting to get outclashed.
Yeah.
And beforehand, he was just fighting to people a little bit too high up. But this time, some of the people all over the place had his number, which is maybe he just had a bad basha. Everybody has a bad outing. I think he took a few hard falls there. But this was... Usually with Tamawashi, there would be those moments that he would get you. And it's just like, Tamawashi, you can't sleep on him. But this time a lot of people started to throw him around a bit.
Yeah, he definitely got thrown around. And, you know, you look at the Nodowa, which Shodai used quite effectively. And Tamawashi used to use that, you know, you get under the throat and you push him. He did that move a couple of times, and it didn't send the people out. They just kind of corrected themselves and then sent him flying. So it seems like he's lost some strength, some edge. He's older. I mean, I think he's 35, 36. That's kind of when you start thinking about how much more can I do this. So I think you're right. I think he's starting to lose it a little bit. Can he regain it? Maybe. But if he does, it won't be for much longer.
Yeah, well, keep an eye on him. He doesn't seem terribly injured, just banged up. And maybe he just didn't have a good showing of it.
You could have something going on at home.
Who knows?
You never know.
So we'll see if he regroups.
It has to do with multiple tournaments in a row. If you see like 2 or 3 where this is the same thing, then you start to get worried. But if it's one tournament, anything could happen.
Yeah, I think he had a losing... Well, and actually, at that record, I think he did better last tournament. I don't know. But anyway, on the downslope, but likely not a problem unless he keeps losing.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have Miyogiryu at M3E, Megashira 3 East. He was also 6-9. He, another one who, he's always trying. He's always hungry for it. And it's just people haven't figured out, it seems.
Yeah, there's no extra oomph from him. So there's a lot of young guys coming up that can handle him. The older guys have been fighting him for a long time. He's just... I could see him hanging around in the middle pack for a little while. And I don't know if I see him ascending past Megashira 3 again. But, you know, we'll see. But it just doesn't seem like he's got it all in there. And I wouldn't be surprised for a retirement from him in the near future. Not like this year, but maybe late next year. There might be a mass exodus after the Olympics.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because there's a lot of young guys coming up and a lot of old guys who've hung around for a long time. Don't know.
This is a larger theme of this tournament, a changing of the guard.
Yes.
That people who are young and hungry or just people who want it more, they had their fill.
Yeah.
And it's always who, maybe it's just not their tournament. Maybe they got banged up, or maybe it's just the guy across from them wanted it that just a little bit more.
Yeah. And then it's a game of inches.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody wants it more than you, or if somebody has just a little something more than you combine those two, and, you know, you're just going to fall down until you fade out.
He has some good sumo, though, so hopefully this is not the spiral.
Yeah, it didn't look like, you know, maybe anybody and everybody is injured to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't look like a major injury. But, you know, he's probably a little banged up, lots of tape and stuff. So, once again, we'll do the 2 tournament rule. We'll check. We'll watch him in the next tournament and see, you know, does he go up? Does he continue the downward slide?
Both Miyogiryu and Tamawashi, we gotta put them on our please don't do too badly list. Stick around, guys. Next, we have Megashira 3 West, Taruchiyoshi, who didn't do too well at a 5-10, but, like, I am liking him more by the day. He's so full of that, like, that rebel.
He is full of the rebel. Just look at his face. He's got a face on where it's like, I'm going to start some shit. That's him.
That's him. He got thrown around a little bit. This was his highest rank, because I think he was 4, 5, or 6 before, so this is just what happens to newer people when they'll hit their ceiling. So this is just the ceiling.
Yeah, he tried a couple of things that make me laugh at this time. I'm kind of glad they didn't work because I feel like he needed to be knocked down a peg or two. I think he was riding the high of helping Teruno Fuji in the last tournament and getting a leg pick on Asanoyama. So he did two things in his fight with Takakeisho, and I was really glad that he punished him for it. The first was he does that crazy false start where Takakeisho's just staring at him. He knows Takakeisho's not ready, and he intentionally goes right into him and slaps him in the chest, and Takakeisho just looks at him. And even the commentators are like, I've never seen that. He just looks at him, then he kind of backs him off. And then when they go to fight, he goes for the leg pick on Takakeisho, and he just blasts him out of the ring. And I was laughing. I'm like, nice try. You got away with it once. Don't try it again.
He did try to leg pick Asanoyama, too. Asanoyama... ready for it. If he had picked Asanoyama twice in a row.
Oh no. Asanoyama probably is going to have his number for the rest of his life.
God.
Because he's going to be like, you started this. You made me look bad, and now I'm going to punish you. He got punished by him. There were a couple other people that punished him. He may be the last man. We'll get more into this later, but he might be the last man to ever fight Koto Shogiku. So, he's going to have that, too. He's an interesting character.
Public enemy number one.
He probably irks a few guys just by the little smarminess stuff that he does. But I laugh so hard when he's getting thrown out of the ring after he does his little antics. You gotta have a character guy.
Please don't change.
No.
Please, just become more edgy.
Yes.
I'm still waiting on that leather jacket. I'm a patient man.
I am expecting a leather jacket at some point to show up.
Next up, we had Yutakiyama, the Greek tragedy of the upper ranks. He was 2-6-7. He withdrew on day 8 with injury. I think that was the mutual badly ending match between him and Takakeisho that he landed on his ankle super weird, and I think that was the one with Takakeisho's funky arm.
Yeah. No, that was Takara Fuji.
That was Takara Fuji, and then there was that was the thing with his neck. With,
yes, it was his neck. He was like...
Yeah, they both fell off the dojo, and Yutakiyama sort of limped over. You're just like, oh boy, and then Takakeisho did that. I'm not moving immediately, which means I'm in pain. And I was just like, oh, they just knocked each other out. But, well, never good to have anybody leave. But Takakeisho did not seem to lose too much over it, at least.
No, but it tells you how hard those two were probably fighting each other. And it shows you if Yutakiyama is healthy, he's a guy he could really hurt you. He could really blast you right out of that ring. I think he's been nursing an injury for a while. I mean, you always see the tape, so there's certain parts of their body. And he's had the tape for a while, but you don't know how much. He's probably been nursing an injury for a little while. I don't think that's a new injury. Maybe it is. But that explains a lot of where he's lost. He's not winning matches when I think a healthy him would be winning those matches. So it was an injury that knocked him down to Jurio before he came back up. I hope we're not going to have the injury parade and he can't, get back to where he can be. So we'll have to see. I hope it's a minor injury. I hope because he withdrew so early, he gets a little bit of extra rest. That shortened time between the two tournaments is really going to mess with somebody if they already have an injury. So
that may be an underlying factor for some people who lost some of their edge. But for better or worse, even with only 2 wins, he's at Megashiro 4, so he's not going to be at risk for at least another tournament. Yeah. So he can be a disaster next tournament too, and he's still going to be in the upper ranks.
Yes.
But Yutakiyama, he needs that alignment, and I mean his problem is just bad luck. It seems.
Yeah, you might classify him in some ways with, the Hokuto Fujis of the world, where he's always in there, he's always fighting, and, you're going to get banged up that way, and you're going to have some tough losses that way.
Yeah. Next up, Tochinoshin, or the ghost of Christmas past, formerly known as Tochinoshin, Megashira 4 West 6-9, and he felt desperate in there.
Yeah.
He had... last tournament, there was these glimmers of his former power, and now some of it was against some of the lighter sumo wrestlers, so he was able to sort of push them around. But this time around, now this could play into what we were just saying about the earlier tournament. Probably did not do him any favors.
Yeah, less time to recover the knee if it swells in between tournaments or something.
Yeah, but he's on the back on the way down. He needs a regroup. I don't know if it's there.
Yeah, I mean, he did back-to-back Hankas to Takakeisho and Asanoyama. Really, really sad that Takakeisho fell the way he did because the tournament looks different if he doesn't lose to Tochinoshin. But at the same time, he is desperate and he's got to do what he's got to do to stay in. But it looks like that's what Tochinoshin Sumo is going to be from now on. Is he did a couple of interesting things, like now that he can't just get the Mawashi and pull you out, he did some throws in the tournament. He tried some like stand-up Tachi eyes. So he's trying other things. At least there's that. He's not in a situation where it's like, if I don't get the belt, I automatically lose the match. But he knows how bad his knee is, and he knows against those higher level opponents he cannot compete. That's why he would pull a Hanka 2 days in a row. The smaller guys, the lower ranked guys, it looks like he was still fighting them, but he's probably, I mean, that knee is not going to get better.
No.
It's just being held together. So
yeah, maybe he'll just need that mid-rank, and he'll just be the kind of person who will be in the middle of the road. I'd like to see one more go from him. I don't know if it's in him.
Just one more glory, like pick somebody out with the sky crane and just dump them nice and light at the other side.
We'll see. He's still in it for now. Next up, speaking of still in it, Kiribayama, Megashira 5 East, 9-4-2, went out on day 10 with a shoulder injury, comes back on day 13, we're like, stay out, buddy, just let it go, and then gets his Kachikoshi after coming back against tough opponents.
With clearly an injured shoulder. It wasn't like, it just got a little tweaked. I mean, after he fought Daisho and won, his arm was in the craziest position. It's like, how are you doing this? How do you have the fortitude, the skill? I was super impressed.
Way impressed. This was somebody who we already knew was going to be good. And then he fights this well with a busted shoulder. Mm-hmm. This guy.
So we got to give it to, in the match of who has the best protege between the Yokozuna, we got to give this one to Kakuryu.
For now, yes.
Kiribayama, if you can fight that well with a busted shoulder, what can you do completely healthy? And he's young, so it's like that injury will probably heal.
It'll be gone in November.
So I do want to see Kiribayama and Enho go at it a couple times,
What's interesting about Kiribayama is the way that the rankings are, there's a chance he's Sanyaku in November.
There is.
Because he has 9 wins, and then everybody above him is either Terunofuji, Takanosho, or Makakoshi.
Yeah. He has a very good chance.
If Shodai gets Ozeki, which is
pretty much
guaranteed, but not 100%, that means there's 3 open Sanyaku places.
Right, and he'll leapfrog all those people that are on the way down. They gave him a special prize at the end, so those special prizes, it's not just you win a certain amount and you get them. They put all these conditions on you. So like Takanosho, for instance, did not get a special prize despite having a better record than Kiribayama because they decided that his sumo was better than Takanosho. So you have some flexibility here. If they give him a special prize, they already have it in their mind that this guy is awesome. Just on that alone, they could say, yep, here you go, into Sanyaku.
We'll see. He may be Kamusubi West.
He's going up either way.
The alternative is that Daisho holds on to the Kamusubi. With a 5 and 10, I don't really see that happening.
No, yeah. That's where they have flexibility to say, we could drop you 1 or we could drop you further. We could raise you up 1, we could raise you up further. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of leeway to sort of decide.
I'm looking forward to that Banzuke. I mean, I got a whole month to wait, but this is how they're going to make those upper crust is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it's not going to be the standard, like, oh, I know who I'm going to see.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, who am I going to see?
Yeah, next up, Takara Fuji, Megashira 5 West, 7 and 8. Also, that 7 and 8, that could have been 8 and 7, that could have been 9 and 6.
Yeah.
I mean, Takara Fuji's, he did seem like he was fighting a little harder this time. It does seem that everybody's sort of been inspired. A lot of the old guard have that Teruno Fuji shine.
Yes.
The spirit of the old. And so, and also, I mean, there were some matches that there are some people, they just tried everything on Takara Fuji, and he's just like, I'm going to wait for you, and then I'm going to throw you. It was fun to see. So that 7 and 8 for me, like, that would, like, if there was a way to have an even score,
yeah,
he would have gotten it.
I watched him a little bit closer than usual. He is very, very solid core and solid footwork. It's difficult to move him if you don't have a strategy, or like, you're not going to just plow into him. There's a few guys, of course. The really, really strong guys could do it. But even Takakeisho had a little bit of trouble with him because he's hard to move. He's really solid, like a tree. And he's one of the Yokozuna call guys. So you go to your stables and you call out guys to train with. A lot of Yokozunas train with him. He's not a guy who's going to necessarily get to Sanyaku, but there's elements of his sumo that are so good that they make other people better. Fighting him makes your sumo better. And I could see it. I'm like, he is tough to move. He's just a solid, stable guy. And like you said, he could have been 8 and 7. He could have been 9 and 6. He's very, with a 7 and 8, he's not going to drop that far. So, maybe...
He'll probably swap places with Kagayaki.
Yeah. Yeah, that's likely. That's likely. So, he's doing his thing. I enjoy it.
Kind of, like, if he has a late revival, that would be interesting.
That would be so cool. I can't even imagine. That's like a Christmas present.
It'd come out of nowhere.
It would.
But just the fierceness he had, maybe it'll be there. We'll see.
Yeah, if he said something in an interview about, I want Sanyaku too. I would love that.
That hunger's there. Sometimes it's all they need.
Yeah, and some of these guys are going to be consistent. Some of these guys are going to have a fall the next tournament. This is the way that it goes, so it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Next up, speaking of not out of the realm of possibility, Takayasu, Megashira 6 East, 10 and 5. That's double-digit wins.
That's a record he wasn't getting that often as an Ozeki.
No. He's just a little too low down to say that this is the sign of the return. But beforehand, he was basically in free fall. Yeah. He kept losing. He was not holding his own, even against people that he should have been beating. He was still struggling here and there in this tournament, but he was able to connect. He was putting it together. And, I mean, back injuries, you're just going to have a bad day. Yeah. But maybe he's figured it out. Maybe he's healed through it, fought through it. Hopefully this isn't a fluke in the other direction. Some people have a bad basho. Maybe he's just having a good basho. I don't know. I'm always going to be on Team Takayasu.
Yeah. The slow walk.
To my dying breath, seeing Takayasu walk down that hallway after he officially lost his Ozeki rank, the sheer depressive power. I'm like, I'm going to adopt you.
I want nothing but good things for you for the rest of your life.
No one deserves this suffering.
Oh, I could hear the violins. That was sad.
Yeah, but on the way back up, I'm always going to be rooting for Takayasu, so I am looking at this with probably a little more optimism than is merited. That being said, 10 and 5 is still 10 and 5.
10 and 5 is 10 and 5, and we've seen all sorts of guys do things that you never thought they could do. So I don't think he's done for. I don't know if he'll ever be Ozeki again. I think he will at least reach Sanyaku. I still want to see him win a tournament. That should be his focus because the rank is so much harder. Just when you're Yusho, so you can go down and when you look at your career, you were Ozeki and you did win a Yusho. It might not have been together, but you did both things, and that's like the highest things you can really aspire to. Being Yokozuna, sure, everybody aspires, but Did they really think they were going to be Yokozuna?
Yeah.
I don't know. Cautiously optimistic.
I am not cautious at all. You're cautious. I
am super cautious.
I am reckless. I am a motorcycle on a dirt road when it comes to my optimism from Takayasu. Next up, Kagayaki, Megashira 6 West, 8-7. Scrape by. Some strong attrition battles. He was in this tournament that he won. And he's tall, by the way.
Yes, he is. Wow. When I saw him fighting Enho, I'm looking at the difference in the two of them, like, how is he even going to reach him? He's going to have to, like, bend down to, like, just reach his shoulders. Speaking of that match, I was paying a lot of attention to it, and because Kagayaki had to get down pretty low, because Enho is going to go low, so if you're tall, this is a disadvantage for you. Watching him get down to Enho's level and just... I noticed how he has laser focus on his opponents. Very rarely is he the guy who's looking down at the Tachi-ai or kind of has a blip. He has like laser beam focus on where that person is. Maybe it was mostly Enho, but I started to notice that that's how he is in a lot of matches. So it's interesting how, his record doesn't necessarily reflect who I think he is as a wrestler. I think he might be very cerebral, and if he could get certain things going, he could make a run at something higher. But that focus, he never lost track of Enho. And he's have to hunch down, he's got to shuffle around, he's got to get him at the right position. It was pretty cool.
A lot to keep an eye on. Yeah, I already knew he was tall, but there's a few sumo wrestlers, of course they're big.
Yeah.
But then I think he was taller than, I forget, definitely taller than Enho. But there was somebody else, and maybe it was Sanayama, that I'm just like, wait, he's taller than him? Dang.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing him fight Ichinojo. I would like to see that, because Ichinojo is like one of the tallest guys. If he's as tall as Ichinojo, then it's like, oh, you're tall.
He tall. Next up, Ryuden, Megashira 7 East 6-9. So we had that list of people to be concerned about if they're losing multiple times in a row. Ryuden is on that list.
Yes.
He was Sanyaku for a little bit, but then he's just been losing. And now, as we knew, his attendant died of COVID, and it seems that has to have had some effect on him.
It could take some time.
Maybe it's just that he, maybe time's catching up with him, and if everything else was fine, he'd still be losing.
Don't know.
The Ryuden that got to Kamasubi wasn't this one.
He was very understated. It's sort of like when I went back and thought of the tournament, I couldn't even remember any of his matches. And that's rare. Usually he has like a statement match, or he does a certain thing, or there's just these moments, and he was just sort of there, fighting, doing his thing, but I don't know. He felt like a different wrestler, and I don't know, I don't want to speculate if it's his personal stuff, if it's his actual sumo, but he's got enough working against him right now that it may take some time.
Hey.
There might need to be some really good moments that happen, or some luck, or, you can get in a spiral for any reason that isn't that you're not capable of doing better. Just keep an eye on him. If he hits Jurio, then it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't know. He needs to regroup it. Best of luck. Hopefully he's,
Yeah, he'll have to... He's going to drop...
8-9.
8 or 9. So he's got 2 tournaments to right the ship before that could happen.
I'm not terribly worried, but it's like he's officially on the
The uh-oh list.
The uh-oh list. Aoyama, 7 West, and Megashira, he was 7-8. Aoyama was very Aoyama this tournament. He got his anger slaps. He did his random pulls.
The pulls.
I think he grabbed a belt like randomly, but he's just doing his thing that he's always been doing. I mean,
it was steady state.
In the tournament of flux,
yeah,
Aoyama is steady as a mountain.
I like it.
Anyway, so, I always have fun watching Aoyama. He didn't do anything spectacular, nor did he do anything concerning. I'm pretty sure come November he will be angrily slapping people in the face again.
And he might have an 8-7 instead of a 7-8.
Who knows? Next we have Tokushoryu, another winner of Yor, also 7-8, Megashira 8 East. He got outclassed a couple of times. There are a few. Now this is again by a lot of the people who are riding these crazy momentums. So maybe he was just on the wrong end of that stick. He did 7 wins is still good. It's weird because 7-8 is just like it's technically a loss. But
no one's really looking at it.
No, yeah. It does seem that you need that 6 and 9 before anybody is just like, oh, what's going on?
Right.
So it's this weird like half step.
I'd say that he's good enough for now. He's, he had that rise from being the last guy to winning the tournament. Then he slowly, dropped out of that upper rank. However, he's at Maegashira 8 and with a 7 and an 8. So he's good enough to kind of hang around for a while. He has the skills, but the young pressure coming from below and the guys from on top, it's going to be tough for him to really get any higher than where he's at. We'll see, but he might be fodder at some point.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate.
Because he's such a likable guy.
How do you... It's like hating the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Exactly. You're like, oh, look, it's Tokushoryu.
He has a resting happy face.
Yes, he does. Which is, there's so many sumo guys with that face.
Yeah.
Terutsushi's got that face. It's nice to look at a nice guy for once.
I like looking at both those faces, though. Next up, we have Wakataka Kage, who I think I've finally learned how to say his name reliably. Megashira 8 West 11-4. He was one of the guys. He was technically in contention for a while, and then he started just the skill finally caught up with him. But he has been on fire ever since his return.
And even though he fell out of contention, 11-4, the second place guy was 12-3. So it wasn't like he fell from grace. It's like, I had a couple of matches that should have went differently if I wanted to win this. He looked really good in his debut, and then he got that injury and went back to Jurio. And that's like, what are you going to do with that? And he's shown that he's a talented guy, and he could go places, he could do things, he could be battling with the best of them. I love his name. Yes. I add that. When the Japanese guys say it's Wakataka Kage, like it's fast.
Yeah, they faster than me.
Yeah, it's very fun to hear. But he's going to be a guy to watch for a long time. That didn't seem like it was any sort of major injury. It was just like an ankle or something. So if he stays healthy, you're going to see him shoot up. I see nothing but shooting up for him. Because even though Shodai is the next Ozeki, the young guys coming up matter. You don't know how long someone can be Ozeki. It's just good to see a steady stream of guys coming up.
He'll be somebody who we're going to blink. And he's in Sanyaku.
Whoa.
Like, he'll be where Kirabayama is in about 4 months.
I want to see battles between those guys. Like, they just seem like the two guys that are the future, and I want to see some, like, epic battles between them.
Next up, we have Enho, Megashira 9 East, still in freefall, 6-9. Enho, his entire first week, looked like a disaster movie. He was just getting trounced, and every time he hit the ground, he had some wince on his face. Now, I know that's sort of like, that's just his face when he's fighting.
He makes a lot of faces.
He's just like...
His emotions are on his face.
So there's not much to read into it because he didn't look physically injured, but everybody had his number that first week, and it was only really the second week that Enho showed up, and he started doing the crazy stuff. His win against Ichinojo, though. First off,
I love it.
That match we had been waiting for ever since Enho hit it, and then he not only does that match happen, but it ends in the way that we quietly wanted it to. We want one of two things. One, Enho does crazy shenanigans, or Ichinoshin literally picks him up by his belt and walks him out.
And since Tochinoshin already did that, we really needed to see Enho take down the biggest man in Sumo.
Yes, and he did. So, I'm hoping that whatever's going on with Enho gets sorted out before he hits Juryo, which is, he's running out of runway.
Enho, it's just a tough go for him, period. He's the smallest guy in Sumo. There's a lot of small men coming up in Sumo, but they got muscle. They've got muscle, they're solid. You can't just throw them out. You can throw them out easier than the big guys, but Enho actually lost some weight before this tournament, and he lost some strength. He needs every bit he can get. Razor's edge all the time for him. And now Hakuho and Ishiura were out of the tournament. So I question who are his training partners if the top guys are out. Maybe he didn't have anybody to train with. He's just got to be so perfect all the time to win matches. This is just what his career is going to be. And you would hope that he's going to figure it out and stay in and not do a free fall. But it's scary. It's scary because he's really one of the most exciting things to happen in sumo. There's no cookie cutter for Enho. Maybe he needs to go spend some time with Minomi and trade some stories, maybe watch some film. I think he can do it, but he has the mental thing too. He gets very, very visibly upset when he loses a match. Mm-hmm. And that first week, like you said, he got trounced. But then the pressure was off in week 2. Now I can just do my sumo. Yeah.
Once he hit Makakoshi, it seemed that he's
just doing his thing, and he was winning again. We'll get there, but look at what happened to Onosho.
Yeah, speaking
of
Onosho. He's next.
Great.
Tier 9 West. So Onosho was leading the pack for a little while. I think he just
setting the tone.
I think he just his dreidel just spun a little bit too fast, and he spun out 10-5, and I am just so happy to see somebody with that swagger.
He's got swagger. He's been looking in Hakuho's playbook. After every single match, he had that little strut. And, he'll always be connected to Hakuho, winning the Hakuho Cup, and then becoming a higher division wrestler. I secretly hoped that this was possible. Here's an example of me being positive for once and it actually working. When he got so beat down and then he got all that energy from winning that one match in the last tournament, I thought to myself, he really can take that and start over, and he did exactly that. And he showed that he can get double-digit wins. He's been underperforming for a very long time. He's got a lot of skills, a lot of strength, and he's young. Some of these guys who are coming up, like Tobizaru, they're older than him. They're older than Takakeisho. He's still a young guy. If he just gets it together, he could be a force to be reckoned with. So that 10-5, I hope he takes it and says, wow, I am capable of much better sumo than I have done. Because to do it in this tournament with all these tough guys, everything is there. And he's got the swagger, so we won't have to forget Hakuho quite so much.
There is that sort of the Shodai hope when it comes to Onosho. That Shodai mentioned in his interviews that because he lost while being in the tournament race, and that he had it and he lost it, so when it was happening this time, he's like, I've been here before, I know how this feels, I can deal with it. I'm hoping that some of that shine goes towards Onosho's way, and he'll be able to look back and say, I think it was like 8-0, 9-0, nobody was touching him. Yeah. He was at the top. And maybe when he's getting his stuff back together, he's just like, I can reach that and then keep going.
Yes, I know what it feels like to be the top guy for a little while. And I think if he's got a footwork issue. I think that if he tightens his sumo up, he could compete with anybody on the list. He's just got to tighten up, focus, want it really hard. He's got the skills. He's got the power. I'd like to see him reach Sanyaku at some point.
Everybody gets Sanyaku. Everybody. You get Sanyaku. You get Sanyaku. I mean, it could happen. I mean, just the way it is. All you have to do, you touch Sanyaku, and then you get 0-15.
And then you get dropped back down.
You drop back down.
Somebody else takes your place.
There you go. We'll just have to rotate everybody.
It's your turn, Onosha.
Yeah, hey. Yeah, next up is Koto Eiko. But Sadanomi first, actually, who's Mega Shiro 10 East. He was 7 and 8. Sadanomi seemed to have the bad luck virus this time.
Yeah.
There are a couple of matches that he was this close, and then it just
didn't work out.
Did work out for him with Kaisei though. By like, oh no, wait, that was Shimanomi. Never mind. But he had a. I was just like, oh man,
just a little bit more. But he did beat Tobizaru. I mean, that makes a big difference. Tobizaru only had 3 losses in the tournament. So the fact that he took one off of Tobizaru is like, hey, you had a difference in the tournament. So you can hang your hat on that. 7 and 8's not so bad. Beating the guy, who was runner-up.
Yep.
So not second, but third. Not the worst thing. You could leave a tournament with less. So, if he doesn't beat him, maybe Tobizaru... Maybe the whole playoff picture looks different, and Tobizaru wins this whole Yusho. So, something to think about. Yeah. Koto Eiko.
Yeah. Now we're talking about Koto Eiko. Mega Shiro 10 West 8 and 7. He got his Kachikoshi on the last day. I felt like... And at first I was just like, come on, Koto Eiko, I had such high hopes. And I'm just like, why are you giving all these hopes to him? Let him grow. Because last tournament was when he was super jacked. He was throwing people around. He didn't look as jacked this time around.
Yeah, I think he lost a little bit.
He lost a little bit of that bulk, but he was still doing a lot of the stuff that he was doing before, but just not without as much force.
There might be like getting some adjustments, like maybe he's changing his style a little bit. I mean, he bulked up, so maybe he was going for more power sumo, and he needs time, like you said.
Yeah.
Maybe he needs to figure out his body a little bit, or figure out how he wants to do things. It seemed like he was swinging back and forth. I wasn't quite sure what he was going to do, Let's see the next tournament. He's a put on the list of watch for next tournament. He's 8 and 7, so he's going to go up a little bit. His opponents are going to change, and maybe things are going to... He's my dark horse. I'm going to keep going for Koto Eiko as my dark horse.
Jacked Koto Eiko. You never know. Maybe
the fisherman. I watched some specials on him. He was fishing with his dad. I'm like, oh, this is cool.
Oh, that's wholesome.
Yeah, he's got some of that like Tokushiryu vibe to him. Like just a nice guy who was out there taking care of him.
He needs to. He went up and then he got knocked back down. Now he's on the way back up again. He needs to. I think that's a threshold he needs to cross. Is to get into that upper half of Megashira, and then from there it'll be we'll see what he's made of. Next up we have Chiyo Tairyu, Megashira 11 East. He withdrew day 13 with injury. He was looking really good at the start, and then he started falling apart near the end. But Chiyo Tairyu was still doing what he does best, just crushing people. He seemed to have a little bit better movement.
That is probably because he lost significant weight, and the second I saw him, I was like, whoa, he looks smaller. And then the commentator said he lost a lot of weight. And apparently he is far more comfortable at this weight. He was talking about how he had gained some movement from it. So it's a shame that he got injured, because we might get to see a new Chiyo Tairyu with, if he's got more speed, because he's still got the powerful Tachi-Ai. So that's kind of bad luck. I think if the injury's not serious, we might get to see some really good matches with him. So, but I wanted to bring up an interesting thing that I was looking at. I'm always looking for clues about personalities of wrestlers, since A, it's a sport where you're not going to show your hand. It's like playing poker or something. But also, most of them are Japanese, and there's just a thing about, keeping everything close to the chest. One area where you can get a glimpse into personality is what happens with a mata. So, Chiyo Tairyu was going up against Terutsuyoshi, leather jacket, and there was a mata there, and just some guys, like when he did the Takakeisho, he's just looking at him like, oh yeah, just you wait till this match starts. Anytime it happens with Chiyo Tairyu, he's like kind of bowing, and he's like holding his hands together, and he just seems like he's a really nice guy. He's in a tough sport, and he's definitely got the oomph. But there's a little glimmer of, like, just politeness and niceness and, maybe he's a chill guy. I like it. I don't know. It was, especially, like, Terutsuyoshi, like, had the same reaction because of how Chiyo Tairyu was doing it. So it was kind of like some sort of respect, like, oh yeah, he's a nice guy. Like, no animosity here. No, this is not an Oyama thing where we're going to brawl out in the parking lot when this match is over. So just a small thing. Watch the Matas. See how people react to each other in that situation. You might get a glimpse into a personality.
He's somewhat in the danger zone with effectively 10 losses. I think he'll still be around in Juryo. I think, and I looked at the Juryo rankings, that we're going to be anywhere from 4 to 6 people coming up.
I was going to say, who's coming up? Like, how many?
I know that Shonokuni won.
So he's coming up.
Well, he was, like, lower half.
Oh, he was? Okay.
So, like, he was 8, 9, 10. So the thing is, like, if he goes up, then it sort of makes sense because he wins the U-Show. He wasn't all the way at the bottom, but he was far enough down that I can see
They might do Juryo 1.
They might do Juryo 1 with him. I'm kind of hoping he makes it up, but, like, he would be the 5. And then there was about 4 people between 1 and 6 that had winning scores.
Okay.
So I think Chiyo Tairyu is just safe because he won enough and he's high enough. But now that we're at this point, we're going to start to look at people who may fall off. Yeah,
there's quite a few guys that might drop right off and a whole bunch of new ones coming up.
So, speaking of Koto Shogiku, Megashare 11 West, 2-10-3. He had an injury, bad ankle, calf muscle on day 3. Comes back on day 7 in an attempt to salvage his rank and just makes us all very sad on the inside.
We have to wonder if he came back and then when it didn't work, it's like, this is it. So let me just do the rest of these matches if this is the end of my career. That's kind of the vibe I got. When you see the look on his face, right after he loses to Terutsuyoshi, he stood on the end of the dohyo and he just sort of did the stare. The look on his face was almost like, I'm taking this all in. And then he did not do the slow walk like Takayasu, but there was sort of a looking beyond the look on his face. So it's not just because everybody's speculating. I actually felt like looking at him that might actually be the case. Coming into the tournament, his goal was to reach a couple of milestones in the upper division with wins. And had he not gotten injured and things had gone as well as it did in the last tournament, I think he would keep going. But I think this was getting the wind knocked out of his sails. He's headed to Juryo. I don't think he wants to tool around in Juryo if he doesn't have the strength to get back up. So I think it's very likely we will not see him as a wrestler again. We'll see him with his windbreaker on.
Hanging out with Takakaze.
Yeah, hanging out with Takakaze. It makes me sad because he's been around for so long that even when I started watching, he still had something in him. And so it's always sad when you see one of those guys go.
What's worse is that he sort of was starting to reinvent things. He had the new Tachi-ai. He was doing some different stuff, so you can tell he was still getting that spark. And he was still trying to do whatever he could to hang on. Now, I don't think anything has officially been announced, but like you said, there was definitely the signs. A lot of the news media were like, is this the end for him? And I think that Goeido did this too.
Yeah.
Because when Goeido knew he was retiring, that he just, instead of pulling out, he ran the whole U show. Because it's like, this is my last one, I'm going to go to the end.
Exactly. Had Goeido not done that, I wouldn't have this sort of sense with Koto Shogiku, but Goeido was the first sort of surprise retirement for me. I didn't see that coming at all, and he did it so that he could stay Ozeki and never lose that. I could see Koto Shogiku never wanting to end his career in Juryo. I mean, because what are the odds in Juryo where it's sort of a free-for-all, that you'll get back up? So it's sad, but I think it is the end, and I expect to hear an announcement any day now. Maybe by the time this is posted, we'll hear something.
We'll see. But hope he, at minimum, recovers from the calf injury. Anything down there, it's just, he can't do anything because it hurts all the time. Yeah.
It'd be good if he, can live the rest of his life, with healed injuries and just doing his thing as a coach. He's got a lot to offer whoever he could coach.
Yeah. Now, it's possible he'll be right at the edge.
If he's at the edge, he might fight through it.
He might fight through it. So, like, he may be 17 at the end. And again, that has to do with however many spots are going to be open for Juryo. That would be the argument for them going to Chonokuni and saying, you're Juryo 1, just sneeze and you're in next time. But this is all speculation at this point.
Right.
But this may be the end of it. I mean, maybe he just throws in the towel anyway. He's just like...
Right, even if you're going to give me the 17 spot, maybe this injury is just something I don't want to recover from because it's just too hard.
You never know. So, hope for the best for him, whether or not he's sumo. Next up, Koto Shoho, another newbie, relative newbie. 10-5, another double-digit win from the up-and-coming from Megashira 12 East. He's got a deep bag of tricks. You can still see he's a bit green, but you get 10 wins anywhere in Megashira, and you're in a good spot.
And he has potential to do lots and lots of things if he just buckles down and gets in there. And I think having all these other guys come up too, they've got plenty of motivation. Mm-hmm. They get to look at each other and say, hey, he hasn't been in that long and he's doing this. And, we'll get to that again. But, look at Tobizaru. He's going to be a motivator for people like Koto Shoho. Like, if he can do this, I was only one win off the pace there. Like, what can I do next tournament? So he's definitely on the list to watch for Ascension.
He'll be fun. A rising star. I mean, we were saying stuff about this when all these people we've been talking about.
We've been talking about him for a while.
And we're just like, maybe he'll be somewhere. Like, Enho started doing these double-digit wins. We're just like, we're gonna keep an eye on him, and he just exploded. So he's the next one. There's so much good coming out of this tournament.
So much good.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. All right, next, Kaisei. 12 West, 7-8. Again, I lost, but only technically. Good to see him not in free fall. He still doesn't really have it all together. He had a few convincing wins, I'll say. It's not like Tochinoshin that everything looks like a struggle for him. He's still got whatever's going on with him, and Kaisei's of the age of added injuries.
He had a neck injury a couple tournaments ago, and that was really messing him up. So it looks like he's sort of on the mend, and maybe that's where you're at the 7-8, where maybe he's still got a little bit of creak in him, and maybe that heals itself. Because once again, short tournament, the guys with lingering injuries are going to struggle. And that might be the case for him. It might simply be, I did not have enough time to relax before this tournament. We'll see. 7-8, not a bad.
Not bad. Still a little bit too low to be losing, but
yeah, he's in a close spot to get knocked out with the 7-8, but he'll be okay.
Next up, Meisei back, 9-6, saying I'm back, guys.
Don't mess with me. He's my other dark horse, so
it's good to see him. Now, you had mentioned before last tournament he won the Juryo division on that playoff. It showed the fighting spirit was still there. He went forward, and I do feel like we're gonna come back from all this and say it was just a hiccup.
Yeah.
And then he'll be back, and he'll be in the contention with everyone else. We'll see how far he goes. Which, I mean, he's just back. But
yeah,
so
he's probably gonna go up to
9-10.
Yeah, he's not going to have a huge rise, so it's going to take a couple of tournaments for him to, if he keeps winning, to fight the big guys. Mm-hmm. But he's got the fire, he's got the desire. Can't wait to see him mix it up a little bit more. When he's at the bottom like that, his matches, you don't get the really awesome matches. I want to see him fight the upper echelon guys, so I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for the Ascension.
Sometime in January.
Yeah, January is going to be fun too.
Yeah, January is going to be where a lot of things start spinning up. Because this was the big, like, climactic explosion of fun, And then November is going to be interesting because there's a lot of the shuffling that's going to be going on. But after that shuffling, there's going to be time for another crescendo.
Right.
So we'll
New Year, who's taking it in the new year, and everything gets crazy in January.
Ishihara makes here at 13 West, 4-4-7. So I thought he was Dunsky because he had an injury. He was out on day one. He comes back for the second week and goes 4-4, which there's a lot of people coming back from injuries. I mean, that's just a sumo thing I don't like, but I understand why they have to do it. And, you have people like Kirabayama who pull it off, and then everybody's just like, oh,
I can do that.
Anyway, Ishihara had honestly looked better in this tournament than he did in the last.
Which is
not
a good thing.
No, when you spent 7 days out on an ankle injury and were still fighting with it for the first few days. But he was starting to put together some interesting techniques.
Which is cool. I wish he would do that all the time.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit more muscle than Enho. Plus he's got the techniques. He could be very interesting to watch. But he gets blasted out so many times. I don't know if I think it's something to do with his tachi. Like, he needs to get lower. I mean, he wants to go head-to-head with these guys, and he's not quite strong enough to do that. And then he gets flown out of the ring. So he's in a weird spot. And I think a lot of his issues are mental, in addition to being a small guy. He's smaller than a lot of these guys. But
I don't know if he'll be.
I don't think he will.
I think he may be Jirio bound. Now, the thing is that lower on down the list, this is where the number of people coming up is going to affect a lot of this.
Yep.
So, Koto Shogiku may be saved. Ishihara,
he's
really
probably
sure.
going to Jirio.
Probably going down at this point.
And he's been back up and down, up and down. I don't know if he's got this. I don't know if he's got the skill to remain in the upper division. I think he could, but whether he does is a totally different thing. I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see.
This could just be his lot. He could just be lower end.
Right, he might be the guy who goes to Jirio, comes back up, goes to Jirio, comes back up. Still, like you said, one of the top sumo wrestlers in the country.
Still one of the best in the world. It's also, we'll see how much better all of these people will be once Hakuho's retired.
Things will change.
There's a lot. So, not done with this year yet, but we'll see if he can put anything together. Actually, we won't be seeing him if he's not in Megashira.
Right.
But we'll see. Hopefully there's a revival in his future.
Yeah, he was one of my favorites way back when there was no Enho. Enho was way down below, and Ishihara was the small man in sumo. There were none of these Meiseis and everything else. He was the guy. And I was very excited for him. So, in my heart, I want things to go differently. We'll see.
We'll see. Next up, Tobizaru. Now everybody's going to know this guy.
Flying Monkey.
14 East, 11-4, was a hair off of winning everything. Fighting Spirit Prize for him. He definitely earned it. And if you didn't know coming in that he was a rookie, you never would have known.
No.
Because the way he fought, the tricks, his antics, his confidence. He was
so close to taking Shodai out in that match. And that comes from a spirit of if there was intimidation, he didn't seem to show it. He was like, I'm going to push this guy out. And that's exciting to see somebody who comes right in and is like, I can beat anybody. That's the attitude he displayed. And of course, he is very emotive. It's very rare to see the kinds of emotions that you saw in Tobizaru's face. He will let you know what he's feeling, and that's pretty cool.
Goes without saying. We're going to see a lot more of him if he
I
fights
think
like
so.
this.
I mean, he really could have taken the title this time.
This was just this tournament. Like day 8, there was like 9 people who were all the same score. At that point, it was a mad rush.
And he took out Takakeisho, in a debut tournament against Takakeisho, who looked pretty good. If you can take an Ozeki and it wasn't really a fluke thing like the Tochinoshin thing, if he can maintain that, he can be right up there.
Don't blink. You'll miss it.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Not exciting, though, is Abi, who's on this rank specifically for formalities. This is his first suspension sit-out. We probably won't be hearing from Abi until June or July or August.
This is like a Tomokaze experience. Where
Sort of.
I don't even want to see your name because it just reminds me that I'm not going to actually see you.
It's going to be a year, 1 year. So, needless to say...
We know that spot's getting taken.
Yes. That's a free opening for whoever wants it. Shimanomi is Megashira 15E, 6-9. He's probably on the way down.
He's been on the tailspin for a little while now. He might be injured. I'm not sure. I mean, once again, you see the tape. I think there might be an injury issue going on, but 6-9.
Yeah, he
didn't get blown away. Some guys had a way worse tournament.
Yeah, he did. There were a couple of matches he just got a little outclassed. I mean, and also if he did have some sort of an injury going on, then maybe he just couldn't get it together to begin with. Definitely on the way down. Hopefully he comes back up. Sometimes a lot of these people, it's like you land on the jail in Monopoly, you're just visiting. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that's Ishihara, hopefully that's Shimanomi. They're just going to dip down, and then come January, it'll be like they never left.
The good news, I guess, is that you still get paid.
Yeah.
It's when you drop out of Jurio that it's like, oh, your life is going to be really hard.
Yeah, I mean, they get a pay cut, but whatever. Come on back, Shimanomi, when you can. Next up, though, Shohozan. This was not good to watch. 5-10, and this hurt.
Something was wrong for sure. The power was not there, so I don't know if there was an injury or something, but the feist was not there. I mean, when you watch a Shohozan match, somebody's going to get bloody. That was not there. He was definitely a shadow of himself. He didn't seem to have any power going forward. He didn't seem to have any of the usual, he didn't even do his slaps in the face or anything. So I don't know if, once again, he didn't look injured. Is this an injury thing? Is this just getting older and losing a step? I believe he is 36. Mm-hmm. So that's that whole age where... Yoshikaze, I think of Yoshikaze, he was at that point where he was starting to lose, and he did go to Jurio, and he did come back up, but it looked like he had more fight in him, and he's like, and he just retired. I could see Shohozan hanging it up. He's Jurio bound. He's going to Jurio. So that determines, is he somebody who doesn't want to see Jurio and just wants to quit? When he was interviewed halfway, I saw this in Chris Sumo. Check out Chris Sumo. He said after that first week, I'm fine. I got enough in me to win all next week. And he ended up winning like a bunch in a row, and then he started losing again. I don't know if that was bravado or if he was just having a bad tournament.
Maybe he just had a bad tournament and he was just too far down to do anything about it.
But that's back-to-back tournaments.
Yeah, he's on the list. Him and Ryuden.
Danger
Got my
list.
eye on you. But, definitely not going to see him next tournament, which is going to be a little sad.
It's been a long time since I haven't seen a Shohozan in the tournament, and he represents a certain piece of the puzzle that he will be missed.
Will be definitely missed. Just hopefully he comes back, but it's always up to them. Whoever they have left in the back. Kyoku Taisei, very sad. One of our newbies up and comings. We don't really get a chance to see much of him because he came out on day 5 with an injury. And
did we see what the injury was?
I forget what it was. I don't know, but it was something that he didn't come back for, and so
we didn't really get to see him.
He was 2-2, so who knows? Maybe that could have been 13-2, or maybe it was just who knows. It's just he's on the way back down, and.
Jurio bound.
This could just be the Wakataka Kage ankle all over again. That we just it's the fight that never was. But maybe he'll be back. Next up, the only other person besides Asanoyama who had the entire world on their shoulders would have been Ho Shoryu, nephew of Asa Shoryu, at 16 West, who on the last day scraped his 8-7. And just the way everybody was staring at this guy.
You can tell when he's walking back to his attendant with that big smile and the relief that it's like, first of all, I saw Asashoryu in the crowd, so he's watching him. You can tell he's getting on him every single time.
Oh, God.
This is bloodline stuff. This is some feudalism kind of thing. Like, you're my blood. You better show your stuff.
And everybody's looking. He'll be the next Yokozuna. And you can only imagine this guy just like, let me win a match first.
And now he's got to look at like Tobizaru and Wakataka Kage, and you just picture Asashoryu going 8-7, huh? At least you got a winning score.
I can't imagine the pressure he's under to get that sort of live up to the family name. But anyway, he got it. He got through it. We're going to see him next tournament. And hopefully he's gotten that rookie jitters out of his system.
There was probably some significant jitters. His interviews, he sounded like, oh yeah, I'm doing my brand of sumo. Just back off.
But glad to see that he got that 8-7. Also glad I got to see the 8-7 out of Ichinojo, who also waited to the last day.
We have been missing him. He's been gone a long time, and he was possibly going back down. So glad that he pulled it off.
It's hard to not notice someone like that.
Yeah, and he leaves a giant hole when he's gone. He didn't do a lot of the stuff he was doing before, like the stuff that he was. I remember he had that tournament. He was like 14-1, and the only reason he didn't win is because Hakuho was 15-0 or something like that. And they never even let them face each other.
Like that kind of fierceness wasn't in Ichinojo in this tournament. Maybe he had the same nerves going on. Hard to tell.
But the Snorlax wasn't there either. He was sort of in a in-between mode where he did a couple of things he never does. Like at one point he barreled over something. He just sort of ran into them with his chest and knocked them out. And then there was a nice throw that he did in one of the matches. And maybe if he just switches it up, he'll have more success, have a little bit more fire.
I'm just glad to see that 8, same as Hoshoryu. That means they'll be around next tournament.
Never leave.
It's like it gets that extra. They're treading water right now. They're still. I mean,
they're still in danger.
Still in danger means they still got to get it together in November. But hopefully, getting that win gets the mental game going, and then they'll get that 9 or that 10, or at least another 8. Just no 7s, no 6s, no 5s.
Don't mess around.
Please.
Get your 8.
Stick around. So this has been a really great tournament. Lots and lots of stuff going on. Shodai being Ozeki is almost like a subset. I remember like when Takakeishi was coming, when Toji Noshin was coming up, it was like that was the thing. Mm-hmm. But like in this, like you had a little bit of everything. Like there was something everywhere. It was so good.
So if you're not if you're not a Shodai fan and like that doesn't mean anything to you, you have plenty of things to pick from that you enjoy. But I don't know anybody who isn't, like, appreciative of Shodai. He's just a nice guy who's been working hard. You saw the disappointments. You want to root for the guy who, but maybe some Asanoyama fans are the ones who aren't too happy.
Yeah.
Some of them are kind of, like, licking their wounds, but just chill out. I mean, he did some really nice throws. That was like watching, like, a sumo demonstration on some tough guys. So he'll be okay.
He'll be fine. The next tournament is going to be good because there's going to be no. I'm looking at this list and like everybody just needs to just make do on promise.
I think we're going to get a total do-over.
Yes.
And once again, it could be anybody's game. Shodai could run away with it again. He does have the skills, but being a first-time Ozeki, I think he'll have too much nerves and he'll do what every Ozeki does and just try to hang on. So we could have another surprise winner.
We will have Kakuryu at least. Hakuho maybe. That's going to put a different spin on everything here.
Yeah, it sure does. Anytime those guys are in, the young guys. But these young guys are not intimidated.
No.
I really don't see them being intimidated. I think they're going to take it to whoever the Yokozuna is. And the Yokozunas might not be a factor.
This will be the big story going into November. is now basically the kids have been playing around and now the parents should have come home. What's gonna happen?
Right? Are we gonna see, 15-0 Hakuho? I mean, he pulls stuff off that he can win on one leg because he's got so much else going on for him. And Kakuryu is not super injured as far as I know. I mean, he's got injuries, but he's capable of pulling off another Yusho. What are we gonna see? Are they gonna upset the apple cart, or are the kids just gonna run right over him?
That will be the big storyline going in, and then everything else is just everybody just go do sumo, like you said, the big reset, and then whatever happens in November will be built on in January. But it's gonna put us in this great spot. We have this great high point. And then we go into November. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of cold weather up here, but
at least we have sumo.
At least we have sumo to warm us up. Oh, man. They don't make them like this often.
No, this one's going to hurt tomorrow when we're not doing this podcast, and I have to say, oh, there really is no more sumo now.
Gotta struggle through October somehow.
But we'll be back. Yeah. They'll be back. We'll be back.
It's all gonna come. Just gotta keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening. See you next time.